Dak Prescott had a hell of a game on Monday night in the dispatching of Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But make no mistake, that has not been, nor it will be, the norm. Prescott has been the model of inconsistency this season, and they're going on the road to face perhaps the most consistent team the league has to offer in the San Francisco 49ers. Even with a rookie quarterback who was balling out, by the way, they have more pieces than a big-ass jigsaw puzzle. But it all goes back to me just not trusting Dak. After the Jags lost this year, he led the league in interception percentage and almost leads the league in turnovers while playing in way less games than pretty much everyone else at the position. Also, Dak suffers from what I call Carson Wentz syndrome. It doesn't just go bad, it goes 5-alarm fire bad. Dak doesn't just make mistakes, he makes catastrophic mistakes. And we've seen it in crucial moments down the stretch. He still has never made it past the divisional round, and even with the win is 2-3 in the playoffs. And even though he was unbelievably efficient and effective against the Bucs, I don't trust him against a team that isn't dysfunctional. Now, the Cowboys have the defense, and they have the pieces on offense around the quarterback. But in my opinion, and it's nothing personal, they just don't have a championship quarterback. Now, we want your thoughts. Make sure you subscribe. Throw it in the chat as well. Going to go ahead and bring in former Michigan quarterback, Heisman candidate, and underground superhero, David Cohn. And soon to be father,
you're not above ground yet?
Yeah. And then my brother, former Western State Colorado wide receiver, and he's pretty good at Call of Duty. Decent. Blaine Crane. Guys, look, and I know the Cowboys, a lot of it is a love or hate with them. I'm coming at this from a purely analytical, statistical, and eye test standpoint. I don't trust Dak Prescott to have a similar performance against the 49ers that he did against the Buccaneers, who are unbelievably dysfunctional. Tom Brady is on his way out. Todd Bowles may be on his way out. They haven't been able to put it together all year and still won that horrible division. So people say, all right, you look at Dak's stats against the Bucs. 26 of 33, 305 yards, 76% completion percentage, average over 9 yards per completion, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. We know he had the rushing touchdown as well. But he has not been able to put back-to-back elite games together. He threw for over 300 yards one time this year, and it happened to come against the Eagles at home when it started out in disaster mode. Remember, he threw the pick to Sweat early in that game. They ended up winning 40-34. But he has not been able to put back-to-back 300-yard passing performances together. Not only that, coming off his best games, that next game, he's turned the ball over at least twice in the interception category. So when it comes down to it, and I know he went through the injury phase earlier in the year, guys, I just don't think the Cowboys in general are consistent enough. But for dadgum sure, I don't think Dak Prescott is consistent enough to go beat a San Francisco team or put enough wins together from the wild card to the Super Bowl to be able to put a ring on the finger of the Cowboys organization.
Okay. Well, I mean, if you're asking me, will Dak Prescott ever win a Super Bowl with my life on the line, I would say no. I think that's a safe bet. I think Vegas would agree with that. A lot of that's not necessarily just on him, though. Dan Marino never won a Super Bowl. Dan Marino was a good enough quarterback to win a Super Bowl. Dak Prescott is not the type of guy you can just put on any team and elevate them to be a Super Bowl contender. He's not Peyton Manning or Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady. But I'll tell you, one of the things that I've really enjoyed watching from Dak Prescott this season, especially since he's come back from injury, when he does make those mistakes, sometimes even catastrophic mistakes that you're talking about, he has proven that he can bounce back within the same game, and reel off as many as 19 straight completions. Or this past weekend, playing against Tom Brady, he starts 0 for 3. He goes 11 for 11. After that's significant. I'm looking at Matthew Stafford as a comp right now. Like I said, this guy's not Peyton Manning, right? He's not Patrick Mahomes, but Matthew Stafford was interesting to me. Now, all things said and done after their careers are finished, I think Matthew Stafford will be a better quarterback than Dak Prescott. But you put Matthew Stafford on the Lions year after year with pieces around him, good offensive pieces. He wasn't a Super Bowl quarterback. All of a sudden, he goes to LA, which was a much better team with a better coach, and he wins a Super Bowl in his first first year. He was hurt this season. Dak was hurt this season. So I pulled up some stats from last season. Matt Stafford was top 3 in the league in yardage. He was top 2 in touchdowns. Dak Prescott was top 7 in those categories and actually had a better completion percentage and a better touchdown to interception ratio. Can Dak get it done in the best moments when you're facing the best defenses like the 49ers, or if you go find yourself up against the Eagles, or if you find yourself toe-to-toe against Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or Joe Burrow on the final drive in the Super Bowl? I don't know if Dak Prescott can get it done, but I'm telling you, I've enjoyed watching him get better throughout the season, even after injury. And let's see. This team is good enough around him to be a Super Bowl contender.
That's my whole point. And people have said when I tweeted out this morning, they're like, oh, well, Joe Flacco won a Super Bowl. Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl. The Cowboys have a really good defense. They don't have that defense. All right? They don't have the elite, upper echelon, best defense in the league, hands down. I think that's the San Francisco 49ers. That, to me, Matt Stafford was balling out on a bad team. It's almost the inverse of Dak Prescott and the Cowboys. They have all the pieces around him, but he is the problem. And it's nothing personal. I like Dak Prescott. I like the way Dak Prescott handles his business. I think he's the ultimate professional. You never hear about a ton of stuff off the field with Dak. He seems to be a good leader for that team, knows when to say when. But it's those crucial moments, and it's the fact, kind of like you mentioned, that him going up against a better team. In my opinion, the 49ers are a better team than the Cowboys. The Cowboys around him can win a Super Bowl, but Blaine, I don't think he has the chops to win a Super Bowl at quarterback, even with the team around him, because I don't think he can get through that gauntlet playing well. Just examples, all right? Let's look at this season. Okay, you had against the Commanders, last game of the year, goes for 14 to 37, 128 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Against the Titans, 29 to 41, 282 yards, had 2 picks in that game. All right, you look against the Jaguars, which they lost, had 2 picks in that game. Texans, which they won by 4, had 2 picks in that game. Giants, which they won by 8, had 2 picks in that game. Green Bay had 2 picks in that game. He cannot go multiple games without having multiple interceptions. And if you do that against this 49ers defense, even with a rookie quarterback like I mentioned over there, not only will they make you pay, they will get points off of it every single time with that offense that they have. I just don't see 4 quarters of great Dak like we saw against the Bucs.
Well, the thing about it, Dak's played well against the 49ers. I think other than 2018 or one of those years, he's played, I think he's
played this team.
5 touchdowns. Obviously, it's a different 49ers team. But one, all picks aren't equal, obviously. You brought up the Jags game. Hell, half the receivers dropped the ball, dropped it into a defender's hand as I watched him run into the end zone to lose the game. But the thing about it, I do think Dak is good enough to win a Super Bowl for a couple of reasons. This year, the inconsistency was real. I mean, you can't deny it. I mean, one of his worst years, obviously, but go back a couple of years. I mean, he's 30 touchdown, 10 pick, 31 touchdown, 9 pick type of guy. So, I mean, you can look at this year for inconsistency. Yeah, that's fine. I feel like Dak is pressed this year. I mean, he broke his thumb early. I think it was week 1. And as a quarterback, David, I might be wrong, but if you break a finger on your throwing hand, I don't think he's all the way healed. I don't think he's all the way injured. I think injuries like that always kind of, in a way, nag you. But I agree with David, and I think Dak's good enough, and I think the team around him is good enough, and I think they're young. You look at it, Michael Parsons, young. CeeDee Lamb, young. Diggs, young. They'll have enough cap space, enough moves they can get made to surround a couple more people around them, whether that's in the secondary or whatever it is. This 49ers game, obviously, I don't think he's going to throw for 300 yards against the 49ers. I just don't. I feel that's a really tall task for somebody, and obviously if you want to be a Super Bowl winning quarterback, you have to beat the good teams. But I feel like if Dak plays within the system, if Kellen Moore calls a good game, the one thing I liked about Dak, especially about last week, he was getting out of the pocket. Dak's best when he's out of the pocket. I've always thought that. You go back to the Mississippi State days. He's best when he is out of the pocket, on the run, making throws. So do I think Dak's good enough to win the Super Bowl? Yeah, I do. He's been consistent somewhat his entire career, unless you go back to the year he broke his ankle. And this year's kind of been an outlier to me for Dak when it comes to touchdown to pick ratio, because Dak's always played within an offense. So I think Dak's good enough. Yeah, I think the Cowboys are good enough. And I think this win against, first of all, the Buccaneers are not a good football team. I know they're NFL players, but I mean, you're not going to get as many chances as you got against the 49ers that you had against the Bucs. It's just not going to happen.
Is this the best Cowboys team you think Dak Prescott's played for since he's been there?
That's tough to say because the offensive line
that's the only thing I would say. And there's been a lot of injuries this year up front.
I say that, but the Cowboys do have more pieces than just about anybody. You have 2 upper echelon running backs that can catch the ball out of the backfield and be effective in Tony Pollard and Zeke Elliott. You have CeeDee Lamb. You have Michael Gallup. You have Dalton Schultz. You have Noah Brown's a good player. T.Y. Hilton, while he's older, is a good player. You have weapons. They lost to the same, well, not the same San Francisco team, but last year, San Francisco knocked them out of the playoff in the NFC wild card. Dak went 23 of 43 for 254 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 pick. He's been in the playoffs, 4 different times? Played 5 games. All right, you're 2-3 in that. You've never been past the divisional. All right, at some point, we got to sit here and say, if we make fun of Rick Barnes and Tennessee and some of these other coaches about getting to the NCAA tournament and fall apart, well, the Cowboys done the same damn thing. They can't win the big one in the playoffs with Dak Prescott, and it's because of inconsistency. That is what I just don't trust him. And you know what? He may prove me wrong. And like I said, I like Dak. I liked Dak when he was at Mississippi State. Thought he was a hell of a player. He's had good seasons. I just don't trust him when it matters the most. We know some guys separate themselves and elevate. The better the game is, the bigger the game is. I just do not think that Dak Prescott is one of those guys. Hey, YouTube, what's up? Do me a favor real quick. Before you do anything else, go ahead and subscribe if you aren't already. If you are, share it with a friend. But make sure you like every video you see. And if you don't mind, see that little bell there? No, Quasimodo's not ringing it, but you can. And it'll let you know every time we're dropping content because we're dropping it all the time. We appreciate you guys.